Hey, a couple of years ago, my wife and I were sitting out on the back patio, and she leaned over to me and she said, "You know what would be really cool? It'd be cool if we could go out to our own vegetable garden and pick our own herbs and vegetables and prepare them in the kitchen." And I thought, that's pretty cool. Let's do it. And so a weekend and $350 later, we've got this 16 by 16 raised garden with crushed granite around the outside and 5 or 6 different kinds of herbs: thyme, oregano, basil, chives, mint. And then we've got tomato plants and squash and my favorite, eggplant. We get everything planted in the garden and we water it, and then we pretty much washed our hands of it. I mean, I'd go out there every couple of weeks and just check on things, but because I have a water system, it was going off every couple of days, and everything seemed to be looking really good. And so I just kind of forgot about it. And a couple of months later, we decided to check on the progress. Well, as you can imagine, the garden was a hot mess. I was going to pick some of the thyme, and all of a sudden it started to move. And I pulled the thyme back, and there was a litter of bunnies, 6 little bunnies, down under the thyme. They had, I guess, that was their nest. I started to look at the tomatoes, and the birds had pecked holes in all the tomatoes. They looked great, but then when you looked at them, you realized. And then basil had just taken over everything and choked out some of the other herbs. And it was at that moment I realized, you can't really have a garden without a gardener. Without a gardener, you got a hot mess. One of my favorite stories in all of Scripture includes a gardener. It's a story of the resurrection found in John chapter 20. The story goes like this. Mary Magdalene, one of the followers of Jesus, just 2 days after his death, is going to the garden tomb to tend to his body. And when she gets to the opening of the tomb, it's open. She looks in and Jesus is gone. She's frantic. She just assumes that someone has stolen his body. And she sees a man coming down the path. And John tells us that she mistakes the man for the gardener. We know it's Jesus, but she mistakes him for the gardener. And I've always read that and kind of laughed, because I think John wants us to know that she made that mistake. But I don't think it's really a mistake, because in reality, Jesus is the gardener. He's not just any gardener. He's our gardener. He's the one who cultivates our souls and goes to those places maybe we've planted but we haven't tended, and he begins to get in there in that dirt and work in and through us. And I think it's such a beautiful metaphor for life, is that Jesus is willing to get his hands dirty for us. What would it look like if we were to be like him and get our hands dirty for others?